Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the best of order. I'll put you in the hands of the President, Maureen Skevington.
Jeremy Corbyn MP, leader of the Labour Party, and Laura, it's a pleasure to welcome you here this evening to South Tyneside to this Jarrow CLP dinner. We know, Jeremy, that your family has former connections with East Boldon, so welcome back, and as they say, to the land of your fathers. Congratulations on the resounding result of the recent election, but I'm quite sure after the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, all of that seems a long way away. I have to say, as a former teacher and an NUT member, I applaud the measures that the Labour Party are taking on grammar schools and the focus on providing high education for everyone at whatever stage in their life. Jeremy, we thank you for finding time to come here this evening and to address us. But firstly, Stephen has a few words to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Maureen, for presiding over this event so well tonight. And you've already said the thanks earlier on to all those people who worked so hard, including Geraldine and Audrey, who made this event possible. I also ask you to put your hands together tonight for the workers here tonight who've been looking after us so well and made us this fantastic evening. Thank you very much. So there's only one apology. There's lots of apologies because we could have sold this over 3-4 times. There's only one apology I want to put in, if that's okay. It is from Don Dixon, who unfortunately cannot make it tonight and he'll not be able to make it tomorrow because he's got mobility problems. But he told me, because I see him quite regular, he says, "Tell Jeremy I voted for him and I hope he wins." For a big thanks to you, Jeremy, because you're the first Labour leader who's come along to a Labour Party event in Jarrow for 35 years. Thank you very much. I thought it would be a big task, but when Will Flynn asked me, can we get Jeremy Corbyn to do this terrific occasion, I said, I'll try, with the 35 years in memory. Well, I went in and went into Parliament, and Jeremy was in his usual place, which is you know where to find him on a morning when he's in Parliament and he's not doing his business outside, and he was in the canteen getting the teas and coffees for his staff, queuing up. So I seen him there, and by the way, I've got stuff in here, so don't get any ideas.
Right, Paul?
But I seen Jeremy, and I asked him, I said, any chance of you doing our 80th anniversary of the Jarrow March? And he looked me in the eyes, and there was a pause, and I thought, what excuse is going to come out there? But he didn't. He looked us sincerely in the eyes, and this is true. He says, it would be a privilege.
Yes.
And that was many months ago, so we're delighted to have you here. Jeremy, when you made that fantastic speech at Labour Party conference that only a 21st century Labour socialist leader could make, it was fantastic. You mentioned Bill Shankly, who's an icon around Liverpool. And of course, I know coming to this event that you've been reading Ellen Wilkinson's book. So you'll appreciate how Ellen Wilkinson is an icon around this area. We have a Wilkinson Court, we have an Ellen Court, we have an Ellen Wilkinson Court, we even have an Ellen Wilkinson estate. all I'm saying to Jeremy, when he goes down to Jarrow tomorrow, if he's going to have a little look around the shopping centre, don't let anybody kid you that the shop's named after Ellen Wilkinson.
Wilkos.
Or if ever we're going to have someone here to celebrate this occasion with us, I couldn't think of anybody better than Jeremy Corbyn. Because we know he would have been a supporter of the Jarrow marchers. He would have been a Jarrow marcher if he lived in Jarrow. And I just look at the idea of the movie Back to the Future. If we could stick Jeremy in that car and he went back to 1936, when those weary, defiant marchers left Edgware on the last leg of the Jarrow March, that 8 mile in to Marble Arch, there would be a man standing on the side with a beard, wearing a cap, shouting out loudly in support, and also handing out sandwiches with Damson jam from his own allotment. But Jeremy, I'm proud as punch. As a Jarrow lad and MP for the Jarrow constituency, to have the Labour leader here tonight to come along and speak to friends, we really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you so much. Gavin, Laura and I were a bit delayed coming here because the train was stuck behind other trains, but you know, it was a Virgin train. Every inch of floor space was taken, so we were forced to sit on the seats. And now we're here. Can I say, I'm sorry we're a bit late arriving, but we couldn't do much about that. Can I say thank you very much? And when Steve came to me and said, will I come and do it? I absolutely meant it, because to me, doing this event in memory of the Jarrow Crusade and in memory of Alan Wilkinson and all that the Labour movement in this area stood for at that time is something we should never forget and learn the lessons of it for today as well. Because if we don't know where we've come from, we don't know where our principles have come from, we'll never know where we're going to. We go forward on the basis of those who have gone before. So Steve, thank you very much for that welcome. It's great to be here to work with you. And also welcome to colleague Dave Anderson. Thank you, Dave, for fantastic work in the Shadow Cabinet. And if Dave stares at me during a Shadow Cabinet meeting, I know he's about to tell me something very profound, or that he thinks I'm talking rubbish. Or both. Dave, thanks ever so much for all your help and your support. It's absolutely fantastic. Ian Manns is here somewhere. Ian, thank you for all your help and all your support and all your brilliant advice. You're a great friend and a great comrade. Thank you very much for all your help. And I know Don Dixon can't be here tonight, but I want to wish him well, because Don was the Deputy Whip when I was first elected to Parliament. I've always had a sort of strange relationship with Labour Whips, actually. But Don was always the most understanding, if the most gruff whip I'd ever had in my life. He'd say things like, well, you're going to do that anyway, so why are you telling me? I'd say, just out of courtesy. He said, aye, okay, that'll do. He didn't, but he is a lovely guy, and I wish him all the very, very best for tonight. And I think we can all send a really good, warm message to Ronnie Campbell to hope he gets through what he's going through. Because he's a great friend, and we obviously wish him all the very, very best. Could I also welcome here the council leader? Where is the council leader? Please rise, council leader. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you do. And can I welcome all the councillors here from whichever local authority they're in, and the work that you're doing, because being a councillor is a joy and an honour, but also very difficult. And local authorities have been used as the main tool for the government to carry forward its cuts into every area of the community and try and blame local authorities for it. So we fully understand the whole issue and the huge problems that you face. But I have to say this, when we have a Labour government, I see local authorities as the key to delivering housing, the key to delivering public health, the key to delivering education policies. You cannot do anything without strong local democracy, properly funded, properly financed on an equitable basis all across the country. The Tories don't understand that. We do. The union's role in our party is absolutely central to our very existence, and I'm really pleased to see the unions that have supported tonight's event and so many union members and representatives here tonight, because I don't believe as a party we should ever apologise for the fact that we were founded by trade unions or supported in large measure by trade unions, because they are part of everyday life. As a former union organiser, I used to be very puzzled by journalists who'd say to me, well, what do you think the public will think of what your members are doing? And I said, well, actually, our members are also the public. You know, you don't stop being a member of the public when you go into work. You will remain a member of the public at all times. And I thought it was a very strange approach to things. And so the work of unions day in, day out is crucial, but it's also crucial that we are prepared to stand up for the rights at work, and that we're doing. And Workplace 2020, which is being led by Ian Lavery, who is not here tonight, but I want to thank him greatly for the work that he does on this, is about rights at work, is about rights of people who are self-employed, is about conditions at work, and is about empowering people. And that is the study we're doing at the present time. The Jarrow Crusade was initiated by Ellen Wilkinson, and I've always been fascinated by her and by her life. And I have at home, indeed, I've got it outside in the car, a copy of the book, The Town That Was Murdered, by Ellen Wilkinson, which my mother bought, because she was in the Left Book Club, and it's her copy that I've got, the Left Book Club edition, published in 1939. And it's got a lovely opening line where she said the book was written with great difficulty because she had to finish it whilst Parliament kept on being recalled because of the imminence of the Second World War. And she said it was a race between me and Adolf Hitler as who would get there first. And she said, I won. So she produced the book just ahead of the outbreak of the Second World War. The book itself is at one level a fascinating history of the town, from its original religious settlement at the time of Bede through to the place on the river, the development of various industries, and then of course the huge growth in shipbuilding and steel production. And it's also a history of the abominable conditions in which people lived in the 19th century, many of whom were Irish migrant workers who came to live in Jarrow, and made the shipyards and the ship owners very, very wealthy as a result of it. And then goes on to describe the battles to form trade unions, the way in which the companies often resorted to lockouts. And there's one part that's very witty, where the Palmer's was locking out all the workers because there was an attempt at building a solidarity with steel workers in Staffordshire as well. And so they thought, the employers thought they could get away with it by locking everybody out, that they would somehow or other give in and accept the reduction in wages they were trying to force upon them. And so the unions had a bit of a wheeze, and they ran up a whole lot of posters saying that they'd arranged free passage to the USA for any steel worker to be offered very high paid jobs in the USA. All they had to do was come round next week to a pub and sign up for it. None of this actually existed, but the employers got completely alarmed by this, because all the workers were going to disappear and they wouldn't have anybody to exploit in the future. And so they caved in. And the union won its case, and they all went back to work on the same wages that employers had tried to reduce. And so that history, and I just admire the way Ellen must have written this book during a period of immense difficulty, because being an MP is very hard work anyway, but she's written this amazing book, and then describing the way in which the whole town so rapidly declined during the deep recession. And she says the final point was when the post tried to deliver a letter to the shipyard, and it was sent back as gone away, no longer here. And that was the final end to that. The Jarrow Crusade was, of course, a cry from the heart, a cry of desperation, a cry to try and make the rest of the country wake up to understand what was going on. And it took place, amazing experience it must have been for the people in it, and it had a profound effect. Probably at the time they felt very angry, they felt very isolated, they felt very ignored, they felt quite forgotten. But at the end of the crusade, when they got to London, the Jarrow March was presented a petition to Parliament. That was about the end of it. But in history, surely it is known as the town that stood up against the recession, the town that stood up at a time when unemployment was 75% in the town and desperate poverty was there. And so, whilst things are not quite of that order today anywhere in Britain, and I hope to goodness they never ever are again, we have to remember that the lessons with the Jarrow Crusade and the Jarrow March and all that went with it was surely that a government that allows industries to decline and disappear, does nothing about it, and says it's all the matter of world markets, refuses to intervene, and then tries to cut the benefits of those people that are trying to subsist and survive. Aren't there some parallels today? Then it was the means test and the brutality of it, but now cuts in benefits for those with disabilities, the attempt to take away personal independence payments, the attempt to take away working tax credits for so many families. There are some disturbing parallels. And then the steel industry facing dumping from the world markets and loss of jobs and loss of livelihood as a result of it. And again, the government barely able to talk the word intervention in it. We in Parliament have obviously opposed them very, very strongly on them. And I tell you this, when as a party we stand up and say, no, we're not having it, we're very, very strong. Hence, we did defeat them on working tax credit cuts. We did defeat them on personal independence payments. It shows, as a party, when we stand up, we can achieve things together. And that surely has to be the message that we put forward. The other issues we have to face are the questions of poverty in modern Britain, because the number of people trying to survive on the minimum wage is huge. The number of people trying to survive on less than living wage is even bigger. And the working conditions in so many parts of the country are actually getting worse, not better. Sport Direct is an example. Sport Direct, abominable levels of exploitation. And I really do take my hat off to Unite for doing their best to organise in a very difficult situation. Get a message across of exactly what was going on in that factory, and then draw the parallel of what was there before, as Dennis Skinner has often done, that Shirebrook was a colliery, had miners working there on proper wages and conditions, and a very strong sense of community and a very strong union membership. The Thatcher government destroyed the coal industry, tried to destroy the mining industry, and tried to obliterate the whole principle of community support and community solidarity. Well, they didn't succeed in doing that. Look at the size of the attendance at Durham Miners' Gala last year, and look at next year, it's going to be even bigger. They haven't defeated that sense of solidarity that we've got. And those workers at Sport Direct, many of them agency workers, some of them migrant workers, abominably exploited to the extent that fire trucks have been called frequently, ambulances have been called to the place, and a woman even giving birth to a child in a toilet because she was afraid to ask for time off work for fear that she would lose her job as a result of it. This, in the 21st century, in this country, utterly disgusting and wrong in every way. So if we can collectively force Mike Ashley into paying back unpaid wages and be shamed into doing that, doesn't that say something about the need for much stronger employment protection legislation all over the country? So we've got to end the whole principle of 0 hours contracts. We've got to end the insecurity that goes with it, and we've got to ensure that anyone who's in a job at least knows what wages they can minimally expect. It might be part-time work, whatever else, but it cannot be right that 1 million people have no idea what their income is going to be from one week to the next. They may have children to bring up, they may have rent to pay, all kinds of things. They need that basic security. And so we are looking at all those issues. That's what Workplace 2020 will do, and those are the kind of principal policy areas that we're working very hard on in the party at the present time. And I hope that all of our members, new members, old members, return members, supporters, union supporters, everyone else, will recognise in our party now we have 500,000 total membership, 500,000 total membership, biggest we've ever been in my lifetime, and all of them have a right to a say. All of them have knowledge, have opinions, of ideas. We want to share those ideas and share those opinions so that come the general election of 2020, we never know, maybe 2017, we are ready with policies that have a wide level of public support on rights at work, on housing, and on a number of other issues. It's about bringing people in. But it's also fundamentally about the economic strategy in which we take this country. And John McDonnell set this out very, very well straight after I'd asked him to become the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer. He said quite simply this: austerity, political choice, not an economic necessity. We have had now 6 years of austerity, 6 years of falling living standards and wages for the majority of the population, 6 years of growing inequality, 6 years of underinvestment in housing, 6 years of cuts in local authority funding, 6 years of underfunding the National Health Service. And at the end of it, what do you see? A developing crisis of immense proportions, particularly in housing and in health, and of course in employment prospects for many young people. And so we have to look at things differently. Therefore, our policy will be a large national investment bank, regionally based, so that the North East doesn't get forgotten on capital investment projects in the way it far too often has been. And that we recognise the basis of economic growth is investment in infrastructure, particularly railways and broadband technology, but it's also a preparedness to invest in industries, particularly frontier technology industries. Because for too often in this country, we've been very good at inventing things, very good at all that sort of research, but not taking it anywhere further forward. I'll give you one example. There's a man called Professor Eric Laithwaite, was a professor at Imperial College in London, and he developed the linear motor. Very, very clever idea. Brilliant idea, actually. And he then wanted to take it forward into production. The then British Rail were interested in it. They thought magnetic levitation motor would be something really interesting to do. And so he then went to work for British Rail Research Division in Derby. And then we had a Tory government. What did the Tory government do? Slash the research budget of British Rail because they didn't see why a publicly owned company should be involved in research and development of new products and technologies. Why on earth not? Anyway, they cut the budget. Eric Laithwaite's motor was therefore not developed by British Rail. It was exported elsewhere, patent rights bought up by other people. And what happens now? We import linear motors from other parts of the world because we didn't make them when we had the chance to do so. Surely an intelligent government would see that as a brilliant idea, a brilliant invention, and invest in it to take it forward. That surely would be a sensible way of taking our economy forward. And so I'm determined that we shall have an investment-led growth, and that will in turn provide the jobs and help to develop good quality, high-tech, sustainable industries in Britain. A number of other things that were mentioned, but just two if I may. The health service is something that I'm sure everyone in this room is immensely proud of. The National Health Service, as a human right, free at the point of use, healthcare. It doesn't happen in most parts of the world. It was a Labour achievement. It was an Aaron Bevan that brought it in. It's our service, it's our achievement. And we have to fight very hard to defend it. And I've just signed a petition about the local hospital. I will continue to support the campaigns on the National Health Service everywhere, because as Aaron Bevan said, it will only last as long as there are folk around to defend the principle of it. But it is being eaten up and eaten away. Eaten away by privatisation and marketisation, eaten away by underfunding and creating a bigger and bigger market for private healthcare, and so the danger is it ends up becoming a health service of last resort rather than first port of call for all of us. We have to defend it. But we also have to recognise there is a big problem of mental health and mental health conditions across this country. 1 in 4 of us in our lifetime is going to have some kind of stress or stress-related crisis. Some of us will get through it, we'll have support, friendship and help, we'll get through. Others won't, because the service isn't there, because the money isn't there for it, because the voluntary sector that does so much in it as well doesn't have the resources or funds to do it. And too many end up committing suicide as a result of the isolation and the terrible place that they're in. And so we as a movement have to stand up for mental health workers, we have to stand up for workplaces where there is support given for those going through stress and they don't end up, when they've recovered, having career damaging remarks put on their reports so that they are able to continue their career and work. People do get through these crises, but they don't get through it if the whole language is dominated by abuse, humour and stigma, instead of saying mental health problems are just like physical health problems. They need care and support, and we can get through them. So I will be appointing another shadow cabinet member to deal with mental health issues, to show that we as a party take this very, very seriously. And that's absolutely the last and only thing I'm going to say about shadow cabinet appointments. If that's okay, in case there's any Daily Mail journalists crept in at the corner somewhere. There's no point in staying, there's nothing more. Tomorrow we're going to be campaigning on education, on the Tory plan to bring back selection at the age of 11. Well, actually, in reality, it's selection at the age of 10. And we have now, as I've told you, a very large party membership. And I got a call last night from our General Secretary, Ian McNichol, to tell me that this is already the biggest campaign accepted in election the Labour Party has ever mounted. In 3 days from when we announced this campaigning day tomorrow, 354 constituencies all over the country had already organised public events to take petitions and campaigning out about not bringing back selection at the age of 11. I think that shows how good we can be as a party when we put our hands together and do it. And the selection at the age of 11 is something that is a complete anathema to me, because if you have selection at the age of 11, a minority of children will pass this test, will go to a selective school, and the majority will not. And then you start looking at the minority who will pass it. They will pass it because they're able, they'll pass it because they're coached, they'll pass it because of the support they've got to get through it. And it will create an effect on them that will last for the rest of their lives, and there'll be an effect on the majority of children who are not selected at the age of 11, an element of rejection of them. It's something that I found profoundly unpleasant when I grew up in a town that had the 11 plus. I just found it horrible, the way that children that had been happily playing together as friends were suddenly separated because one had been deemed to be smart, the other less smart. That is no message ever to give to any child. Surely our whole principle as socialists is that we have to reach out to everybody, give every child the best chance they could possibly have in life, and instead of cutting school budgets at the same time as pouring money into free schools and new grammar schools, shouldn't we be funding every school properly and encouraging and supporting every local education authority to be responsible for the schools in their area?
Yes.
Angela Rayner, as our Shadow Education Secretary, is absolutely brilliant, and I'm very proud of her work. But I'm sure she has no aspiration whatsoever to be the person who day to day micromanages every secondary and every primary school in the whole country. Nobody can do that. It's much better when the family of schools around a local education authority are in charge of the local schools. They can then also provide all the add-ons that are necessary. The add-ons of sport, the add-ons of music, the add-ons of art, all those kind of things, and bring together all the schools in a community so children are not brought up being told the school down the road is their competitor or their enemy. The school down the road is another school down the road which you can work with as friends. There's quite an important message there for children. So tomorrow we're going to be out all over the country doing that, and I'll tell you what, we defeated the government on quite a few things. I've just got half a feeling, and looking at Theresa May last time she was questioned on this across the dispatch box, she A, didn't seem to be totally on top of the subject, and B, she seemed less than convinced of the subject itself. Wouldn't it be nice if we forced them to retreat, run up the white flag on this one and say, no, there will not be compulsory selection at the age of 11? But our aims on education are not just about defeating the Tories. I'm very keen that we should have a national education service, that helps give universal preschool chances for all of our children to come together, not necessarily in a totally educational atmosphere, because I think it's socialisation of under primary school age that's actually more important, because that way the kids learn sort of basic social skills but also get to know each other much better, and therefore often do better in school after that. And taking it through the school years, we then look at what the Tories have done at the other end. The educational maintenance allowance was something that I was very proud of, and certainly many kids in my area, many young people, went on to do A-levels, went on to get apprenticeships or go to university, many things, because they had an EMA which helped them to stay on at school beyond the school leaving age. How disgusting that that has been taken away, ruining the life chances of a large number of young people. And on top of that, stacking up university fees, now going up to £9,500 a year and rising. So the debt level is rising as a result of that. And is it very surprising that this year, for the first time for many years, a number of working class youngsters going to university is declining, not increasing. And that trend will go on and on. And so I'm absolutely determined we will bring back the EMA. We will ensure that we bring back the university maintenance grants. We will reduce university fees. We will not ensure that every student is left with the most dreadful debt when they come out of university. And I say that because I believe education should be a right, not a privilege. If somebody is well educated and they become a good nurse, a good engineer, a good architect, a good teacher, yes, they do benefit individually, of course they do. But we all benefit as well. We all benefit from an educated and talented society. And so those are basic principles around it. But beyond that, it's also about properly funding and giving local authorities the chance to fund it. Adult education. Because adult education, giving people a chance to go back to college or just to learn something else for the sake of learning, is something that we all absolutely believe in. The whole Labour movement was founded on the principle that education was being denied to so many people due to their poverty. That is wrong. Education should be there for all time. And I was in a primary school in Liverpool this week, and there was a lovely class there doing music, and one of them was given the very difficult task of teaching me to play the violin. It didn't work. I'm going to stick to the day job. But I was just very impressed with what they were doing, very impressed with the way in which they came together to do music and the way in which they developed from it. And so one thing I want to achieve is that every school gets a proper culture budget, a proper arts budget, so that every child can learn a musical instrument, and we unleash the artistic and imagination in every child in the future. A Labour government set up the Arts Council, a Labour government set up the Open University. Let's let the next Labour government have a pupil premium for arts and culture for every school all over the country. So that, of course, is about us, it's about communities, it's about communities coming together. We're a party of over 500,000 members. We're a country that has massive challenges following the EU referendum result, massive challenges to ensure that we maintain access to European markets, but massive challenges to ensure that we deal with inequality, injustice and underinvestment in Britain. So a Labour government to invest in infrastructure, invest in industry, invest in housing, invest in education, protect our National Health Service. That is all something well worth fighting for and campaigning for. And as a party with such an enormous membership, we can be a major force in the community. So instead of the abuse, the racism and the hate crime that has happened since the end of the referendum, it's our job to bring people together. Because when communities come together to say the real problem is a government that divides, a government that enriches the minority and impoverishes the majority, a government that isn't interested in the aspirations of working class youngsters all over the country. It needs to be replaced by us as a movement that wants to do things differently. We meet tonight in memory of the Jarrow Crusade. Those brave people that suffered so much to march all the way to London in such awful conditions in order that the voice of this town could be heard. They did so that their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren would get to go to school, would get enough to eat, would live in clean, dry, sustainable housing, that they would get jobs in which their creative ambitions and all the other things in their lives could be fulfilled. They marched because they wanted a different and a better society. Those principles will never go away. Those principles are the very heart of what we as a movement are all about. That is what makes us so strong. That is what makes us so different. And that's why we are going to win. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I now invite John McCabe, the political officer for the CLP, to propose the vote of thanks.
Hello there. John McCabe, political officer, Jarrow CLP. Also a councillor on South Tyneside Council for my sins. Where do you start after a speech like that? Very difficult. So I'm going to keep it brief, which is very good for a political officer. There's many things I would say. Hello, Pat. There's many things I would say, but we'll start with where Stephen Hepburn started with. Can we once again thank the staff? Thank you very much for your hard work tonight. And the florists, and O'Brien's from South Shields, and Maureen Skevin for giving me all the prompts. Can I first of all just say one thing? Can politicians, Ian Mearns, are you listening? Dave Anderson, are you listening? Anybody else who's political in here, are you listening? We will stop using the word decimation, because as a member of South Tyneside Council, we're not being decimated, we're actually being, worse than that. Decem, Latin for 10, so it's not a tenth that we are suffering. For every £10 note that South Tyneside Council gets from 4 years ago, Ed Malcolm, our lead member of resources, will back me up on this, is now worth £4.40 less. It's £5.60 that we receive from the government for every £10 that we got 4 years ago. That's how bad the cuts have been for us as a local authority. And the same as Gateshead and Newcastle, etc. But anyway, can I just, without thanking an individual group, could I just thank every individual who came here tonight and supported this event. Very, very important, as Mr. Corbyn is quite clearly portrayed. You know, we are a movement and we are on the move. And there's no doubt about that at all. Will Flynn, who's sitting on that table there, the Secretary for Jarrow CLP, will tell you that our membership has increased substantially and is increasing, which is a good thing. But just a quick thank you to a few people. Can I thank Unison very, very much? Again, on behalf of Jarrow CLP, can I thank the Unite Union, of which I'm a member, also the NUM. A big miss and a big thank you to Dave Hopper, who's missing tonight, but would have been here. And I'm very, very grateful to see, can I say, some young friends who were councillors for many, many years and have came along tonight. You know, I'm not going to say too much about that, but I did take cognizance of what Mr. Corbyn did say about the women in the party. And let me tell you, Mr. Corbyn, that the women in the Jarrow CLP have always been very vociferous and actually rule the CLP. And that is a fact. We don't need to have clear nominations because they nominate themselves and are very, very good. And that brings me to two very special people in the room tonight. There are a number of very special people in the room tonight, but two very, very special people in the room tonight who have worked increasingly hard over the last few days, including yourself, Maureen, thank you. But as the President, you don't expect thanks, do you? No. Geraldine Kilgour, can you stand up, please? Councillor Kilgour. And Councillor Audrey Huntley. Thank you very, very much. I know your phones have been on meltdown. There are some